We're continuing our Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Hilchot Shabbat, discussion of halachot of Havdalah, Siman Resh Tzaditet, and we're up to Seif Tet, and of Ayin Vav Amud Bet of the regular prints of your Mishna Beruras. And Maran writes what is brought in the Tur, Im Rotzeh Lis'ot Techef LaHavdalah. If you want to start your Seudar Revi'it of Melaveh Malka immediately adjacent to Havdalah, the Shulchan Aruch writes, "Tzarich lizaher shelo yavi lechem leshulchan kodem havdalah." You should be careful not to set up the table with an open bread before you say Havdalah, because remember why we covered the bread on Friday night on Sudat Shabbat morning is because of the reasons that we have of not to proceed with a bracha that is lower on the spectrum of the brachot. We want to do the more chashuv, the more important one first. And bread, of course, is more important than Borei Priya Geffen. And therefore it would be so-called a disrespect to that order when you break it, even for a need. Now we understand that you cannot eat without kiddush, therefore kiddush is important, but still would be jumping the ladder, and therefore we cover the bread as though it's not there. So therefore, says the Shulchan Aruch, you should be careful and mindful of the fact that if you're setting up your Havdalah and you're setting up your Sudat Melaveh Malka and you have bread to the table, then it will become a problem. And if you did bring it, Pores Alad Mapau Mechasu, then you cover it just like you cover on Leil Shabbat and Shabbat morning. Lefishu Muktam B'Pasuk, because it's first in the Pasuk that speaks about the priorities of the 7 species, the Shivat Aminim, that Eretz Yisrael has been praised by, which is Eretz Chitaus Ora first. Chitaus Ora, the grains come before the Geffen Ut Enav Rimon. So therefore, Geffen should be really after HaMotzi Lechem Min Haaretz, and here we are putting that first, and therefore you cover the bread, that it should not be so-called disrespect. If you already have done, if you don't cover it, then you have to say hamotzi beforehand. Says the Mishna Berura, this is only a problem, of course, if you are immediately setting up the Seudah. If not, obviously it's not an issue. In other words, what we're saying is, even if you have bread on the table, but that's set up for another hour, you're not planning to eat it right now. If you're planning to eat both of them now, drink the wine and eat the bread within the next few minutes, then you have to go through the hierarchy of the priorities. But if the bread is there, but you're setting up for a Seudah in another hour, 2 hours, the family is coming, you're going to have a big Melaveh Malka, and you're setting up from now, even though that the bread is uncovered, you can still say Borei Priya Geffen, because that is not necessarily what you are planning to do right now, to have to prioritize the bracha, says the Mishna Berura. Says the Chavetz Chaim means Seif Katan Lamed Aleph, even though that in this scenario you cannot eat anything before Havdalah, and therefore you can't do Hamotzi first, even if you wanted to, at the end of the day, because the halacha would be that generally speaking bread should come first, we still cover it because of that reason. Because otherwise, disgrace to the bread, to proceed with something else before it. It says Maran in Seif Yud, you cannot do any melacha, anything that will be asur on Shabbat, before you do Havdalah. If you already did Havdalah in Chonen Adat, you said Ata Chonan Tanu, then it's mutar. Even though that you have not done the official Havdalah on a cup of wine, if you need to do something of a melacha before you daven arvit, its time has passed already. It's Motzei Shabbat, right? It's Rabbeinu Tam time, and you need to do something. You haven't davened arvit yet, so you say Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lechol, and that's sufficient. That also happens to be true. It happens all the time. A person davens arvit, forgets to say Baruch Hamavdil, Rahman al-Litzlan, right? Forgot to say Atachon Antanu, right? So you go to your car to drive home because you want to say Havdalah with your family. I mentioned, according to some poskim, women should not be saying Havdalah on their own, so you want to say it for them. So you want to drive the car. That's, of course, Yisur Doraita. So that would be this case of the Shulchan Aruch, that you want to do a melacha before you have done Havdalah. So if you did Atachon Antanu in the Tefillah, good. You said Havdalah. If we forgot to say Atachon Antanu in Tefillah, then you haven't said Havdalah. So in that case, you say Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lechol, and you get into your car to go home and say Havdalah on a cup. Says the Shulchan Aruch, and this Baruch Hamavdil that you say, it's of course below bracha. It's without Shem Malchut. You just literally say Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lechol, and you do the melacha that you need to, and then you go home and you say your Havdalah. The Ramah writes, V'chen nashim she'enan mavdilim betfilah. Women oftentimes have to wait a lot before they say Havdalah because they're waiting for their husband and children to come, and the husband is waiting for Rabbeinu Tam to be able to drive. So, there's a whole lapse between the end of Shabbat and the time that they actually say Havdalah. So sometimes the women need to do stuff, right? Do things that are asur midrabanan, even before Rabbeinu Tam, or things that are, preparing for Suda Revi'it and so on and so forth, cooking even. So they also, because they're not doing Havdalah until their husband comes home, they will say the same thing, Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lechol, and then they will do the melacha that they need. V'yesh omrim, the kol zeh b'melacha gemura. There are those who say this is only when you're doing mamash melacha. You're riding, you're sewing, you are doing things that are real melacha. But doing things that are not full melacha, it's like, striking a match or taking something from reshut to reshut. There are those who say it's not a necessity to say Baruch Hamavdil, so long as, of course, the time has come. This is what the minhag comes from, that immediately after people say Barechu on Motzei Shabbat, is already time of Motzei Shabbat has arrived, whatever it is that the minhag is, and in order to enable people in the shul to be able to read Arvit and have light, the Gabaim right away turn on all the candles, at the onset of Arvit of Motzei Shabbat in the shul. They haven't said Baruch Hamavdil yet, right? That's perhaps the minhag. The reason they don't say Baruch Hamavdil is because they're relying on this shita that for Hadlakat Nerot you don't need to say Baruch Hamavdil. Aval ha'ikar kisvarai Shabbat Ramah. The end says this is not a proper minhag. The halacha is like the first svara, that you, for any melacha, you want to light a match, you want to turn on your car, you want to take something in the Reshut Harabim, Tiltul, all of that you would need to say Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lechol before doing the melacha that you need to do. V'yesh omrim lidlot mayim bechol motzei Shabbat ki be'era shel Miriam. There are those who have a minhag to go draw water and drink from natural sources of water on motzei Shabbat, because there is a belief prevalent that Be'era Shel Miriam, the rock, the rolling rock that would roll along the way with them during the Midbar, the 40 years, on Motzei Shabbat, still up to today, it gives its miraculous waters, and those waters, Chazal tell us, had tremendous skula of refuah and zikaron, memory and tremendous things that, associated with it. The legend has it that Ariya Kadosh he knew where this was, exactly the source of this water, and took the Marchur of Chaim Vital to this in the onset of their learning together, which lasted only a year and 10 months. Really, all the Kitvei Arizal, everything that we have from Ari Kadosh was codified by his legendary Talmid, Rabbeinu Chaim Vital, and that the legend has it that he took him there to Be'era Shel Miriam, and he drank from that, and the capacity of his mind was expanded in that way, and so on. But nevertheless, this is something that's not just the spooky hearsay, but it's something that's brought in the Ramah, that there's a minhag of Klal Yisrael that on Motzei Shabbat they go draw water to drink because of Be'era Shel Miriam is sovev kol Motzei Shabbat kol ha-be'erot. It goes through the water, goes through all the be'erot. Umi shepogea bo v'yishte mimenu yitrapeh mikol chacharuav. If you catch it on the right time, if you actually end up having some water from Be'era Shel Miriam, says the Kolbo, you will have miraculous recoveries and so on. V'lo ra'iti leminhag zeh. Ramah says, I have never seen this minhag. There is such a minhag codified in Kolbo, but I've never seen it. V'ayin le'el siman samech gimel. מי שמוסיף בחול על הקודש, אם מותר לומר לאחר שהבדיל לעשות לו מלאכה. Another discussion to be had, says the Ramah, is a person that has not said Havdalah asking someone that has said Havdalah to do a melacha for him. Right? Is that mutar? Is that not mutar? So he sends us back to Siman Resh Samech Gimal, which we saw already back in Siman Resh Samech Gimal. The Ramah writes that if you elongate your Sudah Shlishit on Shabbat after Sedat Kochavim, you can tell your friend that has already davened and done Havdalah to do melacha for you, to cook for you, and you could benefit from all of that job that he does, even though that for you technically still is Shabbat. The time has passed already. Is Motzei Shabbat in time, so you haven't davened Arvit. So what? You could ask somebody else that has davened and done Havdalah to do melacha for you. Now, nowadays, many people are not reliant, they're not machmir like Rabbeinu Tam. The minhag has always been like the Shita of the Geonim, that after Shkiat HaChama starts the time of Ben HaShmashot, and after 3/4 of a meal, 13.5 minutes, Sha'ot Zbaniot, of course, halachic minutes, it will be nightfall. Now those who are machmir like Rabbeinu Tam, right? And you want to know if I am machmir like Rabbeinu Tam, but my friend is not machmir on Rabbeinu Tam, he does the Shita of Geonim, can I ask him to do a melacha for me? It's not that I haven't gotten to daven yet and say Havdalah yet. For me, I'm machmir that still is Shabbat now. He follows the Geonim, right? So can I ask him to do something for me? And the halacha is, you can ask the people who for them is already Motzei Shabbat to do something for you. You're being machmir, like the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam. And the minhag, the general minhag, has in the Sephardi countries at least, has been like the Gorim. Even though the Maran paskins like the Rabbeinu Tam, even in Maran's time himself, in Eretz Yisrael, the minhag did not change to become like the Geonim. It's always the old minhag always was like didn't become like Rabbeinu Tam, rather. It's always like the Geonim. Okay, so it says, let's go back to do some of the Mishna Beruras of this Seif Yud. But before that, we have to discuss when the Shulchan Aruch says that if you did Havdalah in the Tefillah, you said Ata Chonantanu, then it's mutar for you to do melacha even before you say Havdalah on the cup. Still, you have to bear in mind, it says the Kaf HaChaim over here, that you should not do any melacha until the tzibur says Barechu on Arvit, because that is like the community basically calling it a night, so to speak, and that then you could do melacha if you have davened already your Arvit and you've said Ata Chorantanu. Now, there are those who say, and this is important to note, that even if you have said Ata Chorantanu in your Arvit, you still must say Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh Lechol before doing a melacha. And this is not something that you have much to lose, saying Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh Lechol, 4 words, and you save yourself from getting into a machloket. And this is the shita that Rabbi Eliezer Papo, the author of Pelei Yoetz, in his halachic work Chesed La'alafim, writes that a person should be doing this. And Chacham ben Zion Abba Shaul's students, they also codify this in his name, that a person should, even though that technically is mutar to do melacha before Havdalah, after saying Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh Lechol, it's better not to do any melacha deoraita, anything that's real melacha deoraita, until you say Havdalah on the cup. Until you say Havdalah on the cup. Best is not to do that. Fine. If you want to be machmir on that, how do you light the candle of Havdalah? Right? What's that? Existing flame. Well, even lighting from an existing flame, unless you have like a ner shel Havdalah on the whole existing flame, it's that would be questionable, right? But you can have it through a katan, through a minor, if you have a minor available, right? Or have somebody else that has done Havdalah already do it for you. Okay, so that's Chacham ben Zion Abba Shaul, and the Ben Ish Chai writes in Parashat Vayetzir, he says that a shamash of the shul that has to light the candle for Havdalah, that was the job of the shamash. Before he does it, he should say the bracha of Havadil ben Kodesh Lechol without Shemu Malchut. Right? So the whole bracha of Havadil ben Kodesh Lechol without Shemu Malchut. You say Baruch Havadil ben Kodesh Lechol ben Or Lechoshech ben Yisrael La'am, the whole thing. You say without Shemu Malchut. And Kaf HaChaim, not the Kaf HaChaim Sofer, not the regular Kaf HaChaim, but the Reb Chaim Palaji, in his Kaf HaChaim, he also writes that a person should do without Shom Malchut before doing any melacha. Chacham Badia does not necessarily emphasize this point much, and he says if you did Havdalah in Tefillah, like Maran Shulchan Aruch, if you said Ata Chorantanu, all you need to say is Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh Lechol, and you're good to go. You could do full melacha and all of that, and you don't even need necessarily to say Baruch HaMavdil, but you want to be machmir like the Chesed La'alafim. It's a good thing to do. You don't have much to lose, and that would be that. Now, we mentioned that if you didn't say Havdalah in the Tefillah, you didn't say Ata Chorantanu in your Arvit, then you must say Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh Lechol before doing any melacha, right? Now, if you said Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh Lechol, but you said the bracha, you made a mistake. You thought that you have to say all the things, so you said the entire bracha of Havdil ben Kodesh Lechol. Said Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Havdil ben Kodesh Lechol, the whole thing. You said the bracha of Havdalah, right? But you didn't say it on a cup. It was instituted that the person should be saying it on a cup of wine, with the besamim and with the nera Havdalah. So Kaf HaChaim writes, unfortunately, you were not Yotzei, you have to go back and say the whole bracha again with a cup of wine, because that was the institution of Chazal, and this is something that Chacham Ovadia agrees with as well. You were not Yotzei if you didn't do it in a proper way, the way it was instituted by Chazal to be said. So those are two important pointers on this Seif before we even start. Now, the Mishna Berura writes, even things that are asur, it's not just doing melacha before Havdalah, but you can't even do things that are the Rabbanan before Havdalah, says the Eliyahu Rabbah, Paskins the Mishna Berura, before you actually do Havdalah, which means even if at the time of Chashechah, the nightfall has arrived, it's even Rabbeinu Tam. Because you have not said Havdalah, you can't do Melacha. Because still the Kedusha of Shabbat is hovering around you until you officially cut it down, officially end it. The Kedusha of Shabbat is still on you, and therefore Chazal prohibited you from doing Melachais, Midrabanan, and saying Habavdim Kodesh L'chol, saying Baruch Habavdim Kodesh L'chol, that is sufficient. Now, the Mordechai Yafe in Levush, or the early Achronim, writes that you say Baruch Habavdim Ben Kodesh Uben Achol. That's the text that you say. This is not called a bracha, because you're not saying Shem Malchut. The Gemara says Kol bracha Shem or Shem Malchut and not bracha. It's not a real bracha. You're just saying a text of Havdalah that would be sufficient. But the Hadlakat Ner, we said in the Ramah, that there is a shita that holds lighting a candle or carrying is not such a big deal, and the reason is for that kevan de midoraita b'lo havdalah mutar b'melacha, because midoraita without havdalah you could do a melacha, and it's only takanat chachamim, and therefore hekelu b'melacha shem batorach. Chazal were mekel in a melacha that doesn't have any hardship associated with it. It's an easy thing. You just carry something from point A to point B, or you strike a match and you have fire. Then Chazal went out. We're not specific about it. And again, obviously, the Ramah said that's not the halacha. Halachically speaking, you should not be doing any melacha before you say Baruch Ha'avdim Kodesh L'chol. And again, he says, the Mishna Berura, Ba'al Nefesh Yaseh K'mo Shekatav B'Darkei Moshe. If you take a look at the Ramah's commentary on the tour, it's called Darkei Moshe. If you take a look, there he brings in the name of the or Zarua, and also is brought in Zohar HaKadosh Pashat Bamidbar, Shelo lehadlik ner ad achar seder kedusha, that you should not light a candle until after you have said Ata Kadosh in Ubaletzion of Arvit, and you said Kadosh 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 and Baruch, then you could do it. Aval Chazar HaKnesset mutar lehadlik ner achar sheyivdil betfilah. The Chazan of the Bet Knesset could, because he has to prepare the whole thing, he could do it after he already has said his own private Atachor Antanu in his tefillah, even though that the Tzibur has not said Ubaletzion yet, and Kadosh Kadosh Kadosh, Seder Kedusha has not been said, still the Chazan of the Bet Knesset, the Gabbai, could do it. That really concludes our Seif Tet and Yud, and Be'ezrat Hashem, continuing on the next Siman, really Siman Shin, in the days to come. Hazaku Baruch.